The handsome young man just snatched a bowl. In the next moment, he was stripped naked and stabbed in from behind by the man. He took a deep breath of phlegm. The taste hit him immediately. And after the young man fought with the man, the pus-filled sore on his back miraculously disappeared. The young man tidied himself up briefly, and he instantly transformed into a fresh young man. A few days ago, he was just a hunched waist. Due to his physical disability, he had been bullied by people in the circus since he was young. The young man had never felt anyone's care, until a man's appearance changed him. That day, the circus performed as usual. The hunchbacked man could only gaze up at his goddess, when suddenly the goddess made a mistake, and fell from a height of 100 meters. In an instant, two people rushed towards the goddess at the same time. The hunchbacked man, having studied medicine in his spare time, immediately realized that the goddess had a broken collarbone and a dislocated shoulder, preventing her from breathing. Victor on the side said that without professional equipment, it is impossible to treat, and there was no time to go to the hospital. The hunchbacked man borrowed a pocket watch and placed it under the goddess's shoulder. With Victor's assistance, he pushed down hard, and unexpectedly, he saved the dying goddess. Victor was stunned on the spot. He was definitely a medical genius. Victor thought that the hunchback man's medical talent is so high that staying here is a waste of his talent, but the circus owner didn't think so. Seeing that someone had discovered the hunchbacked man's talent, he directly burned all his notes and books. Then he locked him in a cage to prevent him from escaping. After a while, Victor appeared. He looked at the torn books on the ground. Victor was determined to take this medical genius away. Then he opened the cage. This scene happened to be seen by the circus owner. He rushed out and wanted to catch the two of them. They were pursued by the circus. Victor directly pointed to their tent. At this moment, a strong man came chasing with throwing knives. Another skinny man appeared, blocking their path with a shotgun. Victor had a sudden idea. He picked up an oil lamp and turned up the brightness. The strong man threw a knife at the image, hitting the skinny man perfectly. Then the two accidentally wandered into the horse yard. Fortunately, the hunchbacked man was familiar with this place. They finally escaped through the sewer. It was the hunchbacked man's first time in the world outside the circus. From this moment on, his fate would change. Back at Victor's place, Victor didn't say a word. He directly took out medical equipment and approached the hunchbacked man. Victor inserted the needle into his back. The reason the hunchbacked man was hunched over was because there was a huge abscess on his spine. He had never been treated for 20 years, causing him to remain hunched. Victor first sucked out the pus. Then, relying on the siphoning effect, he drained all the pus from his body. The simple part was completed. Suddenly, Victor pushed the hunchbacked man against a post and forcibly straightened his spine that had been bent for 20 years. Then he put a corrective device on him. After doing all this, Victor told him he could stay in the room freely. He also said he would be called Igor from then on. Igor went to the bedroom to wash away 20 years of dirt. He cut away half a lifetime of humiliation. The next morning, Victor left him a note reminding him to come back for dinner tonight, and also prepared a set of clothes and some gold coins for him. Igor changed his clothes and became a handsome young man. Then Igor took out a map. He found the location of the hospital where the goddess was and prepared to visit her. On the other side, the detective received a report from the circus. The team leader said, 2 people stole his belongings and killed a man. But the detective, having solved countless cases, didn't believe it. Within minutes, he deduced the truth of the case. He knew that the clown had been oppressed for a long time, until someone who couldn't stand by intervened to save him, because the circus people were chasing them. So it could be considered self-defense that they killed someone. Then he saw a portrait of Igor in the room. His intuition told him that these two weren't ordinary, so he instructed his subordinates to post wanted notices for the two. There had been recent cases of stolen animal organs. The detective suspected that it was related to Victor. Meanwhile, Igor arrived at the hospital. The goddess Lorelei was still in a coma. He found that Lorelei's condition was critical. Then Igor told the nurse what medicine she should use, and he gave the nurse a gold coin. Igor asked her to take care of Lola and left the hospital. On his way back, he saw the wanted notice on the wall. Just as Igor had gained a new life, he was instantly brought back to reality. Back at home, he fearfully told Victor that they were wanted, but Victor said he was used to it, and that Igor was no longer the hunchback man he once was. He had changed his appearance now, and no one could catch him. At dinner, Igor asked why he had saved him. Victor excitedly said he had discovered Igor's talent. He was a perfect medical genius. Then he took him to a laboratory to show him his results. In a glass tank, there was a pair of eyes. Victor introduced his theory to him. He believed that death and life were merely temporary. He had a way to convert pure electrical energy into a biological field, to resurrect the deceased. At first, Igor was a bit scared to hear this, but when Victor said he had mastered the conversion method, he became extremely excited. As Victor turned the machine, electrical energy was transmitted to the eyes through conductive gel.
That you see?
Igor was extremely excited to see the scene. Then he pointed out that Victor had connected the eye movement nerves incorrectly, so their sizes and directions when opening were different. Victor was momentarily stunned upon hearing this. He really hadn't misjudged Igor. Igor was indeed a genius. Then Victor formally invited him to participate in the experiment as an assistant. As long as he was willing, the entire laboratory's equipment and books would be his. Igor gladly accepted. In the following days, they kept transporting various animal organs to the basement. Victor was the one stealing the animal organs. He needed these organs for his experiments, and Igor continuously optimized the nervous systems of these organs. They worked day and night on the experiments, and soon, these organs came to life. Victor's actual goal was to resurrect an important person. That night, Victor received an invitation to a dinner party. He decided to take Igor to relax a bit. Unexpectedly, Igor saw the goddess Lorelei there. He wanted to go find Lorelei, but Igor always felt that he shouldn't disturb her current life, until Lorelei found Igor. At first, Lorelei was hesitant to acknowledge him. She couldn't believe that the hunchbacked man from before had now transformed into a handsome young man. After confirming their gazes, Lorelei hugged Igor, thanking him for saving her life. Then she told Igor that she was publicly the companion of a wealthy man, but in reality, the wealthy man was gay, and he spent all his time with other men. Igor showed a relaxed expression upon hearing this. Then Victor saw the two of them approaching. He introduced Lorelei to his and Igor's experiments, but Lorelei said this was against the laws of nature. Victor's expression instantly turned cold upon hearing this. On the way back, he told Igor to stay away from this woman. She would only hinder your progress. Igor replied that women had always treated him well. Victor didn't say much in response. He directly took Igor to see their research results. They arrived at a hidden basement. There was a strange anatomical diagram of an animal here, and a creature appeared on the lab table nearby. Unexpectedly, this was a stitched-together monster. All of their previous research results were stitched onto this creature. Igor looked at the absurd scene before him. He felt a sense of fear in his heart. Could it be that Lorelei was right? But as Victor activated the power, Igor was shocked by the scene before him again. As the monster's various organs began to function, then it opened its eyes. They had actually created a new life out of nothing. Igor was completely astonished. This was akin to being a creator. Then Victor explained that he would take him to the academy the next day to showcase their research results to the wealthiest partners. They hoped to gain the attention of a certain wealthy patron, and Lorelei had also received an invitation from Igor. Soon it was evening, and the two began to present their findings. There weren't many people present, but they were all wealthy patrons. They loved to spend money for excitement. After a complicated introduction and the patrons urging, Victor finally began the experiment. As Igor connected the power, Victor plugged the device into the experimental subject, but only a swarm of flies exploded out. Most of the audience was scared away. Victor quickly urged Igor to increase the voltage, but this time, it also failed. The wealthy patrons lost their patience. Only Lorelei and a rich second-generation heir were still watching. Victor decided to go all out. He instructed Igor to set the current to maximum. Under the mockery of the rich heir, Igor pulled the switch. A massive current surged into the creature's body. The excess current blasted Victor 5 meters away. The rich heir laughed out loud, but soon he was shocked. The pile of decaying flesh before him began to move. Victor proudly went over to inspect his masterpiece. Unexpectedly, the monster had quite a lot of strength, and it broke free from the straps that bound it. It fixed its gaze on Lorelei. Seeing that Lorelei was in danger, Igor threw an oil lamp to scare the monster away. Then, at Victor's urging, he chased after it. They arrived in a corridor. Unexpectedly, the monster seemed to lack self-awareness. It attacked Igor purely out of instinct. Igor was yanked down towards the stairs, nearly falling. Fortunately, Victor arrived just in time to pull him back up. Then he reluctantly ended the monster's life with a fire extinguisher. Unexpectedly, the monster had lost control and attacked humans. The two had an argument over this. At this moment, the rich heir approached to stop them. Then, he told Victor that he was interested in this perverted technology. His family was part of the nobility in the country, and he was willing to fund their research, asking if they could create another one. Victor said they could not only create another one, but this time, they could even create a human. Igor was stunned upon hearing this. Things were heading in an uncontrollable direction. He wanted to stop Victor from continuing, but Victor changed his usual attitude. He warned Igor not to ruin the investment. Thus, the rich heir invested in this evil plan, and Victor's mad experiments are all to resurrect a person. The next morning, the detective came to visit Victor's house. Igor received them. He said Victor wasn't available right now, but the detective asked if he missed the circus life. This scared Igor. He definitely didn't want to go back. Igor could only call Victor to confront them. Fortunately, the detective didn't have a search warrant. He could only leave for now. Then Igor went to see Lorelei. Lorelei reminded him to stop Victor's experiments. Igor took her advice. Victor was his savior and friend, so he prepared to persuade Victor to give up the experiments. Unexpectedly, at this moment, Victor's father arrived. He learned that Victor had been skipping school all day. Now the school was preparing to expel him, and his father looked down on his research. He believed it was all quackery. For this, he slapped Victor. Then he left immediately. Igor looked at the desolate Victor. The words were on his lips but didn't come out. In the end, he decided to help him create this life. He looked at the design sketches on the ground. Igor pointed out that the previous monster's body was too small. It couldn't sustain such a large amount of energy, so they needed to create a bigger body. But such a large body required immense energy to activate.
Lightning.
The same problem remained. Even a larger body still couldn't withstand such high energy from lightning. At this moment, Igor came up with a solution. They could design 2 hearts for this new human. Even other organs could be doubled if necessary. After all, this was their created human. They could design it however they wanted. Next, the two of them modified the design sketches while drinking. Soon they completed the blueprint for this new human. Victor prepared to start the new experiment in the evening, but Igor said he was going to the ball with Lorelei. Although Victor was speechless, he still said that this was the rest he deserved. Thus, Victor began the experiment alone, while Igor and Lorelei became a couple. The next day, Igor returned home to find police at the door. Although the detective didn't have a search warrant, he still forced his way into Victor's home. Igor quickly entered the room through the back door. He hurriedly urged Victor to escape. Victor saw him return now, and blamed him for only thinking about wooing, leaving him alone to conduct the experiment. Now he must overload the equipment to prevent the research findings from falling into the hands of the police. Then he instructed Igor to open the secret passage in the house. Igor accidentally opened a freezer. A frozen, eyeless corpse startled him. Victor said this was his roommate. Due to an accidental death, he didn't want to waste experimental material, so he had his eyes removed and frozen. Suddenly, the detective followed in through the back door. He wanted to take Victor, the madman, away. Victor mocked him for not knowing the taste of death, but the detective said his wife died of cancer. He was well aware of the pain that death brings. Victor even tried to bribe the detective with the resurrection of his wife, but unexpectedly, the detective was a devout believer. He was unwilling to accept forces that violated the laws of nature. Suddenly, Victor slammed him against a pillar. Then he shoved the detective's hand into a nearby device. This would likely leave him disabled. The two quickly escaped through the secret passage. They then arrived at the rich heir's residence. The rich heir wasn't panicked to learn they had injured a police officer. He arranged for them to continue the experiments in a castle in the countryside, but Igor felt a sense of retreat after experiencing this. In the end, he spoke the words to terminate their collaboration. Igor also persuaded Victor to give up the experiments, but Victor had persisted for so long, and seeing success within reach, how could he give up? He got into the carriage heading to the castle. The rich heir saw that Igor wasn't planning to continue working for him, and since Igor knew too much, he planned to kill him, because he only wanted his family to hold this technology, but he didn't want anyone else to know about the existence of this technology, so he ordered his men to tie him up and throw him into the river. But the rich heir didn't know that Igor had worked in the circus. The escape skills he learned allowed Igor to survive. He then hid at Lorelei's house. Igor hid there for several weeks. One day, he looked at the pocket watch Victor had dropped. He noticed a name written on it, Henry. This reminded him of a story Victor had told him one day. When he was 10 years old, he had sneaked out of the house to play in the snow with his brother. At first, he was very happy until they encountered a snowstorm. When the sun rose the next day, he survived, but his brother remained forever in the snowstorm. From then on, Victor no longer believed in God. He focused on researching resurrection technology in order to revive his brother. Igor thought of himself as a clown. It was Victor who changed his life. He still decided to go find Victor. Igor told him that the rich heir planned to kill them. After the experiment succeeded, Lorelei hurried to stop him. But when she saw Igor's determination, she also decided to go to the castle with Igor. When the two arrived in the countryside by carriage, they found the roads had already been blocked by the rich heir's men. Lorelei went over to pretend to ask for directions, to attract the guards' attention. Igor took the opportunity to run toward the castle from the other side, but at this moment, the drawbridge to the castle had already been raised. He could only climb up the cliff nearby. When he finally climbed up the cliff, the sky was already filled with dark clouds. A thunderstorm was about to arrive. Victor was making the final adjustments inside the castle. The wires were all connected to the monster's body. Everything was ready, just waiting for the lightning to strike. Everyone was nervously operating at their posts. The rich heir also came to witness this historic moment. If the experiment succeeded, he would achieve immortality. At this moment, Victor went to the washroom. Igor avoided the crowd and followed him.
I'm so glad you've come.
He hurriedly told Victor that the rich heir would kill him, but Victor said he didn't care about that. His brother lost his life saving him when they were young. Now, all he wanted to do was bring his brother back to life. So no matter what, he had to complete this experiment. At this moment, someone outside warned that the lightning was coming soon. Victor quickly returned to the experiment site. At this point, the sky was flashing with lightning, ready to summon it. Victor ordered everyone to lift the experiment body into the air. All positions were ready. Then several metal hot air balloons rose into the sky with wires. They quickly reached the lightning strike position. Everything was set. Victor raised the experiment body to the highest point, as lightning continuously struck the balloons. The power reserve reached the experimental requirements. Victor instructed everyone to open all the relays. The coils connected to encircle the experiment body at the center. In front of everyone's gaze, the creature gradually began to move. Victor smiled with satisfaction. Suddenly, continuous lightning strikes blew up the hot air balloons. The equipment below overloaded and exploded as well. The castle fell into chaos. The experiment platform collapsed in the explosion. The rich heir fell into the boiling furnace and died. Soon, the surroundings fell into silence. At this moment, the detective unexpectedly found his way here. He was stunned by everything in front of him. He furiously rebuked Victor for his demonic actions, but Victor retorted that there was no god here, nor any demons, only Victor. Suddenly, the two felt something. They looked at the empty cage in the air. The cage was already empty, and on the opposite side, a figure stood up. It was none other than the infamous creature. The detective was stunned by this sight. He drew his gun and pointed it at the creature. Victor was filled with joy. He walked over and tried to awaken his brother, but no matter what he said, the creature showed no reaction. At this moment, he realized that the figure before him wasn't a new life. The hollow gaze indicated that it had no soul. All those years of effort had come to nothing. Victor broke down. Suddenly, the detective fired a shot. The creature was startled and grabbed Victor by the throat. It hurled him away. Then it walked up to the detective. With a single slap, it sent him crashing into the iron cage. Then the creature turned toward the others. It wanted to kill all beings with souls. Victor realized his mistake. He was preparing to end this farce with Igor. Igor threw an oil lamp at the creature to attract its attention. Victor seized the opportunity to shoot it in the shoulder, but it seemed not to feel pain. Then the creature lifted Igor and slammed him to the ground. In comparison, humans seemed so weak. Victor quickly rushed to help. At this moment, Igor picked up a wire and electrocuted the creature. Then he took a syringe and pierced its heart. The creature finally stopped moving. Suddenly, Victor reminded him that it had two hearts. The next moment, the creature came back to life. It knocked Igor out cold. Then the creature approached Victor. Victor raised a metal rod. As the creature attacked, he pierced its other heart. Finally, everything came to a conclusion. The next day, when Igor woke up, Victor had already left. He left only a letter for Lorelei to give him. Victor first admitted his mistakes. Then he said that Igor was now free. He would continue to study science for the rest of his life. The film ends here. The movie is adapted from the novel of the same name, by the famous 19th century writer Mary Shelley. It reinterprets the story through a modern perspective. Victor Frankenstein is a dedicated scientist. He perseveres in his quest to create life. He attempts to resurrect his deceased brother through scientific means. Such actions would have been seen as blasphemy. In the context of that era, the police in the film represent traditional beliefs. This kind of science has not been realized even today, but cloning technology has been around for a long time. Clones are still not accepted by society. This method has not integrated into people's lives. The film has a nice steampunk atmosphere. The appearance of the creature at the end is quite shocking. The two leading actors, being familiar faces on screen, deliver outstanding performances. James portrays Victor's madness, obsession, and genius very well. Daniel took on the role of a clown without any pressure. He represents the last bit of goodness in Victor's life. Overall, this work provides an excellent interpretation of Victor's story. It is worth recommending. If you enjoy my channel, please subscribe. Your support is the greatest encouragement for me.